Welcome to Getting to Know Yourself podcast, a space curated for the fearless individual on the road to becoming the best version of themselves. This audio series was created for every woman or man that is on the journey of improving, caring, and discovering their fullest potential. I'm your host, Kai, and thank you so much for joining me. Sit down, grab a cup of wine with your pen and notebook, and let's get to know ourselves. I want to give a huge shout out to a sponsor of my podcast. The sponsor is called Anchor. Without Anchor, this podcast would not be possible. I have been able to create my podcast straight from my phone. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. The creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast come right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. It can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. If you're interested in making a podcast, download the free Anchor app and go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to Getting to Know Yourself podcast. I'm your host Kai, and thank you so much for joining me. If this is your first time joining me, I want to remind you to press subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the coming content. If this is not your first time joining me, I want to thank you so much for being a continued support on Getting to Know Yourself podcast. Okay, so the last 2 weeks I've been really just focusing on a lot of the tabloid things that have been on social media and trying to take that same energy and focus it in on how it relates to self. So we started off with season 2's episode 1 being entangled, and we talked about knowing our relations with just being with people who are centering with our highest self and not those who are with our lowest self, and just understanding the parameters of our relationships and not using others to compare our relationships. In the second episode, we discussed whack-ass politics about gender stereotype roles and how Black women specifically are being portrayed in the media in a way that, and held accountable in the media in a way that other people, specifically men, especially white men, are not being held. So I really thank all of those who have reached out to me and given your perspective on what you feel I have presented with these topics, and I am truly thankful for that, and I would love to continue to hear from everyone. But today I would like to just shift the topic a little bit and do something a little bit more soft. I wanted to focus more on our spirits today and focusing on just taking that leap of faith. So today's episode is called Be Like Ruth, Know Your Faith. Okay, so if we are familiar with the book of Ruth, we know that it is one of the earlier books in the Old Testament, and it's one of the few books that are modeled after women. However, Ruth is a very mighty and powerful person, and though her book is short, only 4 chapters, it makes a great impact and shows us how we can truly move mountains and really step into our divine purpose when we have faith in God. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of background of what Ruth did and how that proved her to be successful. And she was really able to step into the woman she was supposed to be because of the fact that she relied on God. So Ruth, she lost her family, her husband, and the same happened with her sister-in-law. And so her and her sister-in-law were widowed, and they had their mother-in-law, Naomi. Naomi's sons were the ones who she lost, and both Ruth and her sister-in-law were married to Naomi's sons. And so Naomi, once her sons were gone, she was ready to just up and leave. She's like, look, this is too much for me. I'm about to go away, and I need to clear my mind and just be in a new space. And so initially both Ruth and her sister-in-law, and forgive me because I have read it a few times, but I can't quite remember all of the names off the top of my head. So that's why I'm saying sister-in-law, but all the ones who are important, trust me, I'm gonna remember for this episode. But her and her sister-in-law were preparing to go with Naomi, and Naomi was like, no, you don't have to come with me, please just save yourselves, I'm gonna be all right. And sister-in-law was like, okay, sis, see you later. And then that's when Ruth said, no, I don't think so. And more specifically, she said, in the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verses 16 through 17, Ruth said, where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. And I think that's super powerful because she had just lost everything. And even the person who she found to be a companion was like, look, I'm going to go ahead and head out, sis. And then she's like, no, wherever you go, I'm going to go there. I'm going to follow God. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to have that faith to do what you feel is going to be beneficial to us. And I don't know about you all, but I want to be like Ruth. I want to learn how to nourish my character so that I can have that much faith in God. Because as we progress in the book, once Naomi and Ruth got to their newfound land, Ruth, she went out and she was doing some work with the well and with some water. And this man, Boaz, he came up to her and he was like, basically like, do you know like who I am? Do you know what you're capable of? And like trying to hit up on her. And she's like, no, this is not what I came here for. And then later on, it turned out that Boaz was a family member or long distant cousin or family member of Naomi, and he's really a descendant or ascendant of Jesus or Jesus's followers and disciples, because he is one of the few people that God transcends in the Old Testament. He's the few people that he shows himself to. And so I think this is super powerful because she had no idea when she said, no, I'm gonna follow you. And Opera, I believe is her name, the sister-in-law, she said, I'm gonna head out. She had no idea that once she found Boaz, she was gonna marry him, and then she was gonna be, where she needed to be in life, where God showed her once that she would be. So I think it's something we should learn, something that's super powerful for us to learn from Ruth. And I'm going to go ahead and discuss the lessons that we can learn from Ruth. So go ahead and grab your notebook and pen and jot down these lessons. So lesson number 1, I think it's important for us to learn from Ruth's life some leadership lessons. And one of them that became super clear to me was that you need to always do what you know is right and not what looks right to others. So it might have been logical for Ruth to go ahead and decide to just do exactly what Oprah was doing, or Orpah, however you pronounce her name, is Orpah. But anyway, it might have been easy for her to do that because she knew her. That was a comfortable place, and she had just lost everything. But instead of allowing her questions and doubt to influence her to leave Naomi, she instead used her heart and came to grips to what she believed in. And she moved from, answering those questions and agony of that to the reality of answers she could not escape. And she felt a deep conviction that she was supposed to stay with Naomi. And she followed that conviction. And I know sometimes as leaders, you get that intuition. And I truly believe that it's in your right nature to follow that gut feeling, that initial feeling that tells you, like, go ahead with your heart. That's to me is God telling you, like, yes, that's correct. And it's a scary feeling because we're like, this feels weird. This feels odd. But, following God and knowing our faith is not easy. So as leaders, we need to remember that strong convictions precede great actions. When we know something is right, that conviction is bolstered by the knowledge that our motives are pure. So, understand that strong convictions precede great actions, and in order for us to do that, we must always do what is right and not follow others. Number 2, follow your heart with integrity. Following your heart with integrity can increase your influence with others. So because Ruth followed her heart and went with Naomi to Bethlehem, her influence on others was increased tremendously. Instead of looking down on her as a foreigner, the Hebrews admired her. She gained favor with Boaz, who tell her, "I've heard all about you, heard about the way you treated your mother-in-law," and people admired that. You know, if you follow your heart and you act with integrity, people will hear about your character, and your character will speak for itself, and blessings will pour into you on their own. You won't even have to look for them. So God was able to make this woman come into her household and bless all of those who she came in contact with, because she followed her heart. She knew it was right, and she was able to be respected, blessed, and honored in that favor. So make sure that you always act with integrity and follow your heart. Number 3, remember to be humble and keep working as God blesses you. When Boaz recognized Ruth and started to bless her, it might have been natural for her to slack off, but Ruth didn't do that. She was receiving so much favor from a relative who had power and property that once belonged to Naomi's husband. But Ruth remained humble and faithful, and she kept working hard. So that allowed for Boaz to invite her to eat with her, and then she kept working. She never said that I'm going to become complacent with the fact that I'm getting favor. That wasn't enough for her. Her humility got her way more than she was able to fathom. And I need us to understand, when we are walking in faith, when we are walking with God, it is important for us to follow our convictions, act with integrity, and be humble. Because when we do that, we are able to get so much more than what our own minds can conjure up. When we act in a way that's boisterous and know-it-all, and we are not acting with integrity, our thoughts about what is for us can get misconstrued, and we end up to be in a place that we never belonged in the first place. And then our faith is tested because we start to ask God, why would he allow us to be in this space? But it's not that he allowed us to be in his space. He allowed us to make the choice to either follow and be patient and follow our convictions to be where he placed us or where he envisioned us, or to follow our earthly minds and be where we are capable of understanding. See, our divine purpose is not something that we are capable of understanding. And so because we're not capable of understanding our divine purpose, it is so important for us to be faithful servants and to be humble. When we act with humility, we are able to follow in God's footsteps and seek God for all knowledge. When you have all the answers, you don't have to seek out God. So as you go forward, I want to remind you to, first of all, read the book of Ruth. Again, it's only 4 chapters. If you haven't read it, please go ahead and do so. Number 2, I challenge you to act with strong convictions and precede that favor, because it's so important to be faithful. Next, I ask that you act with integrity at all times and follow your heart. And lastly, I ask that you remain humble, because although we are blessed, our blessings can always be taken away. So remain humble, do the work, and count on God. All right, that wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining me on Getting to Know Yourself podcast. Again, I'm your host, Kai, and if you didn't already, make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss out on any coming content. Don't forget to get to know yourselves. Until next time, peace.